How's it going guys, hope everyone's doing okay. My name's GotCake and welcome to this review of Towertale, a 2D action game centred around boss rush style battles with a strong focus on character storylines. As always, don't forget to like the video if you enjoy it and sub to the channel as new indie game reviews are uploaded every few days. So on Towertale's main menu we see 4 figures looking towards a huge tower off in the distance, and it's these 4 characters who are the focus of the game's story. In the game's story mode, you get to play as one of the 4 characters. Each have their own separate storyline and you can play them in any order, though there is a loose chronological order which you're able to follow if you choose, and that's what I advise. The game's main plot revolves around each character's desire to reach the top of a mysterious tower, which is said to grant a wish to anyone who is able to conquer it and reach its apex. As you work your way through a character's story, you'll discover the reasons for climbing the tower, and character storylines intertwine with each other at various points in the game. I began my first game in the advised chronological order, beginning with Lionel Blueheart, an angry looking chappie clad in full plate mail, wielding a sword and shield combo. As the game begins, you're dropped into this tutorial void where you're shown the game's controls and get to practice different attacks and manoeuvres. Once you're happy with this, you can then proceed to the main game where your first challenge awaits, the heroic Giga Frostwolf. This first fight introduces you to the game's action elements, which are solely focused around boss fights. Each floor of the tower features a different boss, and each boss comes with its own movesets which you'll need to learn if you want to stand a chance of beating them. Bosses often have multiple phases, and the number of phases are indicated by a skull icon below the boss's health bar. Once you reduce a boss's health to 0, the next phase will begin. Each phase introduces additional attacks for the boss to use, his health will be replenished and you'll regain a quarter of your health back. In combat, each of your attacks and dodges costs stamina. Your stamina is seen as a yellow bar beneath your character's health bar, and when this reaches 0 you won't be able to perform any moves. Stamina regenerates slowly on its own, but you can regenerate stamina faster by holding down to crouch. Each character comes with a different moveset consisting of 3 attacks and 1 evasion move, and each attack generally has a couple of variations depending on whether you're crouching or in the air. To give you an idea of these movesets, we can compare Lionel's, who is a melee fighter, with Faendrell's, who's a ranged character. Lionel's dodge sees him charge forward with his shield, during which he can block some projectiles, and any damage taken is reduced by 50%. Faendrell's dodge, on the other hand, allows her to roll a short distance left or right to avoid damage. While the distance of a dodge is less, she also has the ability to double jump. Using Lionel's thrust attack whilst crouched will turn it into a rising slash, launching him into the air. Using it again will then perform a downward slash. Using Faendrell's triple volley when crouched will instead fire arrows into the air, which will travel a short distance before raining down on enemies. So getting back to the battles themselves, if your health is reduced to 0 in a battle, then you'll lose and have to start over the boss from its first phase. But if you manage to fight your way through all the phases and reduce the boss's health to 0, then you'll emerge victorious and move on to the next floor and boss. Between floors we usually see some sort of storyline development. Usually this involves either an interaction between characters in the present day or a flashback to your character's past, providing further clarification on the motives. The game encourages multiple playthroughs as each character's story has a number of different endings, and there are certain points within the playthrough where you'll get to make a decision which will impact on which ending you get to see. Once you reach the top floor and beat the final boss, you're treated to a final animation sequence for the character before returning to the title screen. So I've played through each character's storyline and beaten all the bosses, sometimes with a little help, so without giving too much away and spoiling the storylines, I'll summarise my gameplay experience with Towertale. So beginning with the game's storylines, I'll start by saying that you won't find anything massively inventive in Towertale's narrative. Admittedly there are a few decent plot twists, but for the most part each character's story is a standard cliché which has been done many times before. Lionel is seeking to correct his father's wrongdoings, Faendrell's begins as a tale of vengeance, and Lord Snicklefritz and Dark Echo are both seeking the source of the tower's power, but each has a different agenda. I thought that the way in which the storylines overlapped was a nice addition, and a decent amount of effort was put into the storylines and their accompanying artwork. The one thing that I did find a little odd was the fact that almost every character in the game laughed at some point. Regardless of the situation, the writers seemed to think that an overly expressive laugh was required, and they got pretty creative with some of them. Turning our attention to the action now, I'll first start with the positives. Boss variation is actually really good. There are about 17 different boss fights in total, with the majority of them having multiple phases, and the devs did a good job with making each boss feel unique. There was a good amount of variation in each boss's moveset, and for the most part, bosses felt pretty balanced and beatable. However, there were some issues with some of the bosses, which I'll get onto in a moment. Looking at each character, it's clear that there was a lot of effort put into making them feel unique, through the variation in their movesets and movement mechanics. Each playthrough with a new character introduces new ways of tackling previously faced bosses, which coupled with the different storylines may actually see you enjoying a second, third and fourth playthrough of the game. So let's get on to my main issue with Towertale, which predominantly lies with some of the combat mechanics. To start with, I want to talk about the dev's choice to add a stamina bar. While they may have been going for a Dark Souls-like approach with phased boss fights, requiring you to assault the enemy before retreating to cover, I really don't think it works that well in this game. Your stamina bar regenerates pretty slowly, and after throwing a few attacks and dodging several times, you'll find yourself running on empty. You'll then end up retreating and crouching to regain your stamina, but this leaves you open to attacks, and in my opinion just ends up slowing gameplay down unnecessarily. There are also some balancing issues when it comes to different characters facing the same bosses. Ranged characters have a distinct advantage in boss fights, as they can just keep bosses at a distance and focus on avoiding any ranged attacks bosses throw back at them. Melee classes on the other hand have to get in close to do damage and have a much tougher time at avoiding taking damage. They're also at a severe disadvantage on several bosses such as the Reaper, the Angel and the Watcher, who can fly and basically float up out of range of your attacks. Or the Lightning Samurai, who's incredibly mobile and will see you expending a lot of stamina just trying to get into melee range to attack him. During my playthrough of Lionel, I actually got so pissed off at these issues that I resorted to enabling some of the game's assist settings for a couple of the bosses, which can be found in the pause menu. These allow you to buff your character's attack and health multipliers, or reduce your enemy's damage and health. They also allow you to enable infinite stamina, which I did on all characters after completing the game with Lionel, which made the game a little easier but more fun to play. In general, the game's combat mechanics are good, but can feel a bit clunky at times. On several bosses, I just found myself using my standard attack without much need to explore any other button. Jumping and collision detection can be a pain sometimes, like here when I'm trying to jump over the golem's arm, and enemy attack hitboxes can also be a bit shitty and unforgiving, and sometimes result in you taking damage when you wouldn't expect to. So as a whole, Towertale is a pretty decent game. It has several different game modes. Admittedly, they're just various ways in which to face the same bosses, but it'll take you a while to get through all the game's content. There's also a co-op mode for up to 4 players, which I didn't get to play because I have no friends. For a rating, I'd give Towertale 4 out of 5 stars. The bosses are well done bar a few issues when facing them with specific characters. Multiple playthroughs don't feel boring or repetitive thanks to the variation in character design, and the main storyline is well done and worth the playthroughs to see the story through to its true fourth wall breaking ending. You can get the game on the UK Switch eStore for £7.99 or on the US eStore for $9.99. The game's also available on Steam and will no doubt be coming to the Xbox and PlayStation in the near future. And that's it for this review of Towerfall. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel to be notified of future indie game reviews. For now though, I want to say stay safe and thanks once again for watching, and until next time, game on.